Bueno, perfecto. Okay. Empezamos? Okay. So, welcome everybody. We're very pleased. The National Autonomous University of Mexico and the University Program of Studies on Asia and Africa welcome you to this conference called Catalyzing Change, Tackling North Korea's Human Rights Challenges Through Global Engagement. We're pleased to have today Ambassador Shi Wan Lee. She's a professor of the Department of Political Science and International Relations, ambassador for international cooperation in North Korean human rights, president of Korean Academic Council on the United Nations System, chair of Evaluation Committee of Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and member of Trilateral Commission. Her previous positions include postdoc fellow at Harvard University Center for International Affairs, special advisor of UNSG Kofi Annan's Rwandan Independent Inquiry, chair's advisor of East Asian Vision Group, full-time visiting professor at Columbia University, international board member of Green Europe, vice president for international affairs at Korea University, chair of research committee of Seoul Forum for International Affairs, visiting scholars at MIT Centers for International Studies, UN Secretary General Advisory Group member of Peace Building Fund, member of Committee on Public Diplomacy, Republic of Korea, advisor of Korean Army Development, and member of Ministry of Defense Requirement Verification Committee. She received her PhD from the University of Maryland at College Park. Her numerous publications, including Human Security and Cross-Border Cooperation in East Asia, Foreign Policy Dilemma in South Korea and Democracy, and UN Indo-Pacific and Korean Peninsula, cover East Asian multilateral security and foreign policies, UN security roles, and human security. Ambassador Shi Wan Lee, welcome to the UNAM.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So should I just bow or? So should I just start?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this is Shin Hwan Lee. I'm an ambassador of international cooperation on North Korean human rights from Republic of Korea, that is South Korea. And but I'm at the same time a full-time professor of Department of Political Science and International Relations, Korea University. So it's very pleased to meet you. If I knew you have this beautiful facilities, I could have brought my PPT file so that I can visualize what I'm supposed to tell. But since I didn't, so I'll just go ahead to explain what is the North Korean human rights issues and why it matters not only to Korea, but international community. So before I start, I just want to make a quick survey. How many people already know about Korea? I can tell because my son has the exact same shirt. Did you get it from one of your male, your friend? Good, yeah. That's for the summary, like a T-shirts for those who serve for the military. In Korea, the men are supposed to serve the military for 1.5 years as a mandatory duty. So only one? Who doesn't know anything about Korea? It's no shame. It's a natural. Okay. So then probably I'll just give you a very brief historical lectures, history lectures, so that you understand why I'm talking about North Korea and then I'm from South Korea, right? Well, in 1910, up to 1910, Korea was the kingdom. The Joseon dynasty is our country, but that was occupied and then annexed by Japanese colonial power. So we've been under the Japanese imperial rule for 36 years. And then we got independent in 1945. Although we Korean people ourselves was fighting hard against the Japanese colonial rule, obviously our capacity and power were not that big enough to making our own independence. So it was kind of the outcome of one of the outcomes of the World War II, which was somehow ended by Allied forces, right? So to make a long story short, immediately after the war was over, Stalin of the Soviet Union wants to build up more communist societies around the world. So that began with a big competition, what we call great rivalries between Soviet Union and United States. So that Soviet Union, by help of the Soviet Union, Kim Il-sung, who was the founder of the DPRK, that is North Korea, the first getting into the northern part of the Korean Peninsula. And therefore, they appear not to have much choice for southern part. So that by help of the US and then allied forces, the South Korea made our own part. So on the northern part was the communist society, and then southern part was the like a free capitalist society was built in 1945. And after 3 years of like a protectorate, not rule, but system of the United Nations, that usually happens if the new country came out, right? In 1948, the United Nations would like to supervise the general election, which cover both North and South Korea. But at that time, more than 2/3 of the population lived in the southern part, while 1/3 was in north. So that it was obvious if this general election was taking place, the country will be dominated by the southern phase. That's what Kim Il-sung and the Soviet Union didn't wish to see. Therefore, they refused the UN come over to supervise the election, so that only the southern part had to take general elections under the supervision of the United Nations. Therefore, the southern part, which turned out to be Republic of Korea, is the only legitimate country which was endorsed by the United Nations of 1948. Only less than 1 month, Kim Il-sung, in support of the Soviet Union, established the DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea, in the northern part. Therefore, and since then, it's almost 80 years, we've been apart, unfortunately. So we are divided nation. We always aspire to reunify. Although northern and southern part of Korean Peninsula has go to the very different direction, both of us have one same goal. That is the one nation and the unification, although the approaches and our end state appears to be different, because the northern part, of course, they want having a communized the Korea, while we want having a free democratic, the unified Korea. But anyway, so having said those things, I just want to tell you one most recent event first, and I will move on to what I'm supposed to talk in regards to the human rights issues. Kim Il-sung is the founder, and they are debatable. His name originally, the real name is Kim Sung-ju, not Kim Il-sung, who's supposed to be one of the hero of the independent fighter against Japan. But anyway, he is the founder, and his son is the Kim Jong-il, and then current leader is the Kim Jong-un. So this is the very weird. We are not dynastic like a country anymore. We are just a republic, right? It's the same things to the PRK, but they just appear to having a dynastic successions all the way to the third one. And now the Kim Jong-un is aimed for the 4th generation successions. That's why probably his 11-year-old daughter is often come up to the TV and the public scene. But anyway, it was, no matter what kind of difference we had it, neither North nor South never agreed about an independent political entity or separate political entity until this year. That means even though we became a UN member state respectively in 1991. So probably from the international perspectives, we are a separate country, but neither of us agreed that issue because we are one nation. So we always think about we are one state. Therefore, according to South Korean constitution, those North Korean people are the Korean citizen, unless they commit some criminal activities, unless they are political spy from North Korea. If they somehow manage to come to the South Korea as a North Korean escapees, they are granted as a South Korean citizen. It is because we always believe in one nation. Kim Jong-un, current leader's grandfather and father, both of them strongly believe we are one nation as well, under the name of self-reliance. Therefore, this January, the Kim Jong-un, the current leader, his announcement of the two-state system is very something new, and it's a big major shift from what we've been believed for a long while to something what they want to go. Some people argue that because they somehow became a nuclear state, so they having a big confidence, therefore they want to be on their own, they want to establish their own political entity. But majority of expertise and political analysts believe it's not true. Rather than that, we believe Kim Jong-un has some kind of concern, or if not fear, of being absorbed by the South if unification ever takes place. Probably, as you know, our economy, the South Korea achieved what we call miracle of Han River, that is Korean River, that is the economic development and also democratization for over the past 30 years. And then you know all those, the Korean wave, right? Korean culture and movie drama and all those things. So we are pretty advanced country who aspire to become a G7 plus countries. In the meantime, the North Korea is suffering from like food crisis and refugee issues and all kinds of human rights abuses. Right. So having said those things, and if you have another question in regards to the Korean politics and the Korean history, I will be more than happy to take your questions. But since I'm here as an ambassador of the North Korean human rights issues, so let me just quickly move on to what we mean by North Korean human rights. So when it comes to North Korean human rights, at least the three critical areas we have to pay attention. The first is human rights abuse of North Korean people within North Korea. Like lack of the food right, and they are always suffering from food shortages, and also it's an extreme control of information inflow, and the lack of the freedom of expression, and also the lack of the freedom of the movement. And also in the worst scenario, you are subject to severe torture and punishment and harsh labor, forced labor, and in the worst cases, public persecutions as well. So those things are still there, and that is like a grim and very systematic and also widespread kind of crime against humanity. The second category is something happening outside of North Korea. And on one hand is overseas labor, and another one is North Korean escapees. Overseas workers, North Korean I'm talking about, their life is akin to modern slavery. The reason is because those about 100,000 people are still working outside of North Korea, but they are the main, one of the main income revenue for North Korean Kim Jong-un regime. Like mainly to increase the they just build up those cash. They just serve as cash cow, right? And then they are working for 14 to even 18 hours per day, and then they say 80 to 90% of their income is directly go to the Kim Jong-un without themselves seeing where their money are. So those a big source of the revenue is usually went to go to the Kim Jong-un's Kim Jong-un and the small number of the Kim Jong-un family and political elite groups to entertain their luxury goods or increase the military capacity. So that's why I believe human rights issues and the North Korea's military security are very closely related to each other. Another thing is the North Korean escapees. As of now, there are more than 38,000 North Korean escapees are in South Korea. Usually, you know the Korean Peninsula, the maps, right? You can Google, and we have DMZ, demilitarized zone. Although there is demilitarized zone, after the end of the Korean War in 1953, there are 1 to 2 million landmines. We don't know exactly how many. So many landmines are there. It is impossible for North Koreans cross the DMZ zone to come to South Korea. So that very few can escape through the East Sea or the West Sea, usually East Sea, but that is also quite hard. So that majority of them left the country by crossing the river between North Korea and China. But that means you escape to China, right? And then from China, you have to go to the third country. The third country is usually Laos and Vietnam and then Thailand. And then if you just go to Thailand finally, then you can find yourself be safe. And you can ask for the help of the Korean embassy or those who can help Korean NGOs who's helping their defection. But so those 38,000 people are the lucky one. But compared to all those people who tried to escape from North Korea, it's about 100,000 people. Compared to those people, those 38,000 are very small in number because that number was accumulated for the past 20 years. Therefore, North Korean escapees condition is very dismal. Most of them are women. The reason is because women easily find a job, but that job is not a real job, but they are often been a target of human trafficking. And also they are married to Chinese men. Usually those men are very old or disabled, or those people who have some problem, mental problems. So that many of those North Korean women who fled from North Korea in search of food or in search of the better life are stuck in China. And they couldn't find any route to escape from China to the third country so that they can come to Korea, South Korea. So I call them, they are in limbo. That means they have been a double suffering. Because if you go back to North Korea, either by forced repatriation or voluntarily went back, still you are subject to punishment because you are labeled as a traitor or you are a spy, right? So that you have to hide yourself in China. So you have to suffer from all those things. They don't pay you properly and you are human trafficked, or you are forced to be married to one man, and then you got a huge human right abuse by them. You got beaten and all other things, but still you remain silent. Otherwise, you have to be reported to Chinese authority and then have to go back to the North Korea, where the severe punishment waited for them, including the sexual violence. So they got stuck there, right? But there are so many testimonies from North Korean escapees. So probably if you can Google all those things, you will get it, or we'll be happy to provide some information if you're interested in later on. But I can only give you one example. One example is last October, China has a Hangzhou Asian Game in October. In October, right before and right after that, there are some 600 plus North Korean escapees were forcibly repatriated to North Korea. What happened was during the COVID-19, they were stuck, right? And then 2,000 plus North Korean escapees were detained by Chinese authority in near Chinese and North Korean border areas. And once the border opens, they have always a constant threat of being repatriated. So including myself, the South Korean government and also international community keep saying Chinese should not repatriate those people. But right one day after the closing ceremony of the Asian Game, 580 plus people were forcibly repatriated. And some 40 to 50 of them were repatriated before that. So it's a total of 620 plus were forcibly repatriated. And of course, they are labeled again as a traitor or like a betrayer or traitor or spy. And also if they had an experience of having a baby birth, they said they tarnish the North Korean pure blood, right? So they got even further severe punishment. But either by human trafficking or forced marriage, And although it's few in number, there are some women married to Chinese out of love. And all of them, let's say, having a babies. But that baby is Chinese because the men were Chinese, right? So that if those women was forcibly repatriated to China, I'm sorry, the North Korea, of course, they physically suffered, as I said, torture or political prisoners camp, and in the worst cases, maybe persecution. But they have psychological sufferings as well, because they are forcibly separated from their children, right? That is obvious violations against the international humanitarian law, which strictly prohibit the family separation. So I think that is the part that China has to abide by international law, because they are the member of the international humanitarian law. And another thing is we need to persuade and we have to engage with the Chinese authority. So one of my tactics is we try to explain, you just send back the woman to North Korea. It's not only painful experience for the North Korean woman, that will be the equally painful things to the children who left. Because without proper understanding why their mother has to leave them, right? They have to psychologically suffer from the separation from their own mother. So that one the selling point is at least those who have Chinese children, right? The children with the Chinese citizenship, at least those North Korean women should stay in China to take care of the children. So those things that we are just working on it. So there are so many other stories I can share with you when it comes to Chinese escapees, but in interest of time, I will stop here. And the third category is human rights abuses perpetrated by North Korean Kim regimes against South Korean and Japanese and all other international nationals. I don't know if you heard of the one beer who died 4 days after he came back from North Korea. He was like a traveler to North Korea, because at that time North Korea, before the COVID-19, North Korea opened up to the international the people who are interested in North Korea to Pyongyang and other places for tour. So he was a tourist, but I think right before he departed for the Pyongyang, which is the capital city of North Korea, after tourism ended, he took off the poster where the Kim Il-sung founder and Kim Jong-il's son, the face were there. So he got caught because that is his spy activity. We don't understand exactly what is going on, right? And despite all those efforts of the American government to try to save him, it didn't happen until 1 year. And he finally collapsed. We don't know the why. And he was in coma. And 4 days plus after he returned to US, he died. And then his parents is now active member of the family members who tried to put Kim Jong-un into International Criminal Court for accountability, which is akin to crime against humanity. And also they tried to make like a private and individual sanctions against the North Korea to block some kind of illegal money they have in bank and etc. So in the Japanese cases, they have 17 Japanese was abducted by North Korea in 1970s and 80s. And 5 of them returned to Japan when Prime Minister Koizumi visited North Korea and making negotiations. But 12 have not come back. So that is one of the biggest foreign policy issue of Japan. In the case of Korea, I think about 500 people are still, if they still survive, are detained abducted by North Korea, and they are still in North Korea, we believe. And also 6 missionaries was detained now, and also they are unrepatriated prisoners of war since 1950 to 53. So you can imagine if they were in the 20 plus at that time or 19, they are already late 90s or 100. So they don't have much time left. So we must bring them home. But North Korea constantly refuse. They don't exist and they only stay there involuntarily. But there is no way we can confirm, their will or their intentions. So we should take care of our abductees and detainees and unrepatriated prisoners of war and the suffering of their family members. So when Yoon Suk-yeol government, which is current South Korean government, came to power 2 years ago, the president was highlighting the importance of North Korean human rights issues, and one of them is that abductees and detainee and POW issues. So that we just recently made this pin. This is forget-me-not flowers, and there are 3 flowers, and one for abductees, and another one for detainees, and other was POWs. We just made it, and we don't have a stock left, but hopefully we can have a more made up, and hopefully if you're interested in, we would like to send it to you later on. Okay, so those are 3 things, like North Korean human rights within North Korea, and then those North Korean escapees and those Korean overseas laborers who are akin to modern slavery. And then the third is the South Korean, Japanese, or international abductees, detainees, and the POWs. So all those things are very, probably is by no means exhaustive, but still it's very wide-ranging issues I have to deal with it. So that I've been pretty busy over the past 2 years to speak for all those issues. All right, then what we should do. Despite this kind of a very touching and difficult and heart-wrenching issues, I'm afraid those Korean human rights issue is something like a silent suffering or forgotten crisis. Because since mid-1990s, agony of North Korean people have been known to the international community, particularly because of unprecedented food crisis in North Korea. And a lot of people died. Some people say as many as 1 to 2 million died, but nobody knows exactly how many. And then the equivalent number of the North Korean left the North Korea, mostly in China and Russia. So that international community start to get interested in those tragedy and the crisis, humanitarian crisis in North Korea. And then since 2003, UN Human Rights Council made a resolution, UN resolution on North Korean human rights. It's been 22nd years with no exception. They made a resolution on the North Korean human rights by consent. So that is a March usually. And then since 2005, UN General Assembly in New York also produced the resolution on North Korean human rights issues by consent. So it's very important for us. And every year, twice a year, we're having those resolution on the North Korean human rights issues to remember those things. So you might not necessarily agree with US or Western idea or policy for international affairs, but still, we can having a different idea and different perspectives and different national priority, right? Or like a different national interest, as I said, but still we believe in universal human rights and universal values and universal norm and individual freedom, right? Probably that's why the UN resolution in Geneva and General Assembly in New York respectively made resolution on North Korean human rights issues by consent, not by vote, over the past 2 decades, right? That's why I want to highlighting the importance of global outreach to understand the North Korean human rights issues, why not only North Korean or Korean peninsular issue, but regional and global issues. I had an opportunity to have a meeting with the Vice Minister of Multilateral Human Rights Affairs today, this morning in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I asked him to positively and constructively consider of the Mexico's participation in UN resolution on North Korean human rights issues, in which will be the deadline by April 19th, which is only 1.5 days ahead. But Mexico hasn't yet participated in that. So I asked him, him and his president and his government can positively consider to join in that resolution on North Korean human rights issues. But what I'm saying is, it's been doing that for a while, but little thing has changed. So I'm afraid there are international fatigue phenomena is on the air. So how we can overcome those fatigue phenomena is one thing. On the other hand, there are humanitarian crises in South Sudan, Northern Mozambique, and Haiti, right? And Afghanistan, Myanmar, and Ukraine, and now in Gaza Strip. So because we have to compete the global media's attention with them. So that I'm afraid the North Korean human rights issue is pretty much sidelined. And as a matter of fact, High Commissioner of the UN Human Rights Council highlighting we should remember forgotten crisis. And then he named 4 different countries, but he forgot mention North Korea. So when I visited the United Nations in Geneva last March, I just visited the UN Human Rights Council and I met with the Deputy High Commissioner, and I asked her to include the North Korea. So if as a South Koreans, right, or as those neighboring country like Japan, if we talk about that issues, probably I would say that effectiveness is the 50%. But if those third countries, particularly like a very important, powerful country like Mexico, can say that for us or say that for North Korean human rights, then I do believe you can have 1,000% of the powerful voice. That's why I need your help to remember the North Korean human rights is as important as with Gaza, Ukraine, and all other humanitarian crises. So having said that, I do believe global outreach is very important. Like for instance, the consolidation or solidarity of like-minded countries is very important. When I say like-minded countries is probably trilateral cooperation among South Korea, US, and Japan. That's what we try to do now. And they're usually was supported by the European Unions and Canada and Australia's. But if we can making a more outreach to countries with a diverse perspectives like Mexico and other Central and South America's help, I think that would be wonderful. Another important thing is youth outreach like you. I believe in future and I believe in young students, not because only I'm a professor about 20 plus years and I'm always teaching the students of your age. And my problem is I kind of align with I just align my age with your age. That was always my problem. As I'm just getting older, I'm still in your age because I don't see you, but I don't see myself, but I always see you, right? That young, beautiful, healthy, and hopeful faces, right? So youth outreach is very important. I can give you one example. When I'm making lots of interview with the North Korean escapees, those North Korean escapees in my age, they always highlight how much they suffer from Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-il's regime. And then they also try to say they are the victim of the human rights. But if I'm talking to like your age or younger, of course they say they are victim, but they are more interested in what they can do in this country, that is South Korea, and what they can do for their home country. So I just see some hopes there. So believe me, those North Korean people, including North Korean escapees, not only the victim of the dictatorial regime, but also they are the core agent for change to build up the future of North Korea that should be freer and also more justice, right? And also with respect for the human rights. For that, the youth outreach and the global outreach are very important. You know, I took almost 2 days to go all the way to the Buenos Aires from Seoul. Buenos Aires is one of the furthest city from Seoul, Korea. And we were the Miss An, who is also the diplomat. She and I flew almost 2 days door to door, and then stayed there for 2 days from morning to the night. We have a full schedules, and last night we flew here in overnight, and we already are here to work. But if I can have 1 or 2, and hopefully 2 to 3 students from here who do not know much about Korea or North Korean human rights, start to get more interested in this issue and wants to speak for them and act for them, then I think my very tiring trip is much more rewarding and also very fruitful. So having said that,
We have 2 people that.
yeah, I'm done. So let me depend on your support and your zeal for the freedom of North Korean human rights together with all other humanitarian crises. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for this very interesting talk. Now we have 2 experts from the program of African and Asian Studies. First, Dr. Nayeli Lopez will comment on this talk. Dr. Lopez received a scholarship from the National Institute for International Education Development of the Government of the Republic of Korea to pursue her doctoral studies at Hanyang University, Seoul. In 2011, she graduated as the first Latin American with a PhD in Korean studies.
Which is university?
Hanyang.
University. Oh, okay.
She is a researcher level 1 at the National System of Researchers of the National Council of Science and Technology and a researcher of the University Program of Asian and African Studies. Her lines of research are contemporary Korean culture and society, the Korean wave or Hallyu, contemporary Korean women, among others. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, for being here in UNAM. So I'm very pleased to hear your exposition about North Korea. Like in the recently years, we have been talking about this topic of North Korea in the University Program for Asia and Studies, considering that it's very interesting for people in Mexico, especially for young people, to know about this system, this regime, this peninsula, like for a complete vision. So I think the issue of human rights anywhere in the world is always relevant. The case of North Korea is a fundamental issue that must be talked about, socialized and questioned. Beyond political system, the context in which the North Korean people cling to life is an issue that has been systematically silenced, made invisible, and in many cases forgotten by many societies in the world. When we talk about human rights in North Korea, we talk about rights that must be guaranteed for people like us, people exploited, mistreated, violated, hungry, obliged to the forced labor, and many more atrocities that sometimes in our context we cannot imagine. The political system of North Korea is a system that must be understood based on key concepts, since it is precisely the conjunction of these elements that forces North Koreans to face the systematic violation of their human rights and, in lucky cases, to be able to escape of the country. Although, until the liberation of Japan in 1945, as the ambassadors say, the Korean Peninsula shared a common history, language, and culture. It was after 1948 that the unified peninsular territory since the Shilla period was divided by the great powers emerged from the Second World War. A socialist government sponsored by the Soviet Union was established in the northern part of the 38th parallel of the peninsula arbitrarily, divided by the Soviet Union and the United States, dividing families, but also marking destinies. I mention this because to think about North Korea, we must think beyond a socialist system that applied to the cultural and historical particularities of Korea acquires atrocious characteristics, especially nowadays in this last regime. North Korea is a country that is founded on a Confucian social and cultural structure, which has remained latent since the fall of the Korean Empire, founded with the remnants of the last peninsular kingdom, Joseon. This Confucian structure, absolutely patriarchal and patrilineal, exalts the role of the eldest man as the figure from which all social dynamics and consequently all social relations develop. Confucianism marked social hierarchies and in addition emphasizes the existence of power elites who will cultivate the figure of power of the male ruler in order to ensure his own permanence in power. When we add a socialist political system to this structure of social organization, then the idea of a male leader drawn from the elites, who apparently contain the knowledge and power to govern, is exalted and reaffirmed, thus exalting not only the figure of a male leader, but of the elites, more similar to a caste system, who are the ones who govern and secure the privileges of power. The North Korean system is based on the cult around the leader and his family. Any action that suggests that even smokes of the opposite will be radically removed from the social environment so that it does not contaminate other social agents and will be punished exemplary anything that provokes terror among the other members of society as a lesson to extinguish any sign of insurrection or questioning of power. The military and authoritarian profile, finally, is the only way these elites find to contain power over others. In this authoritarian, military, despotic, dictatorial context, women, men, boys, and girls of North Korea must live. And although socialism speaks of a horizontal society where everyone is valuable and his rights and equitable redistribute resources, it only remains on paper, because in practice, all these countries that call themselves socialists are countries that violate the rights of the humans who inhabit their territories. In recent years, the attitude of the North Korean state, represented by its leader, Kim Jong-un, has been directly questioned, especially due to the growing production of nuclear weapons and the threat that this represents for the entire world. It is questioned, I think, legitimately, why the resources used in this nuclear program are not used to guarantee and dignify life for its inhabitants. I think as academics studying this region, as students interested in this region, our contribution must be based on making visible little known situations in the countries we study. Beyond folklorizing the North Korean regime, let us question the violation of the rights suffered by North Korean citizens in an attempt to make the reality visible. If at all, we can call this a humanitarian gesture. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. So now I would like to introduce the second commentator for today. That's Dr. Juan Felipe Lopez Jaimes. He's a PhD in International Relations from the University of Sussex, United Kingdom. He's a researcher at the Regional Center for Multidisciplinary Research of the UNAM, where he participates in the Global Change, Globalization, and Development Program. He's a researcher level 2 of the National System of Researchers, the National Council of Humanities, Science, and Technology. His research topics are the political economy of international cooperation and the relationship of Asia-Pacific and Latin America, comparative political economy in Northeast Asia, the political economy of development in the case of South Korea, and transnational cooperation in Asia-Pacific.
Thank you very much. Very interesting talk, Ambassador Lee. I am amazed of all the travels you have to do to voice out the problems and human rights, and I appreciate that because it has to be done. Thank you very much for that. It's a very complex thing because, as we have seen so far, the international community has failed to do something about it. I mean, whatever has been done is not effective. And I think we should, as an international community, focus on that. You ask what we should do, right? So one is to know the problem. And there's a lot of facts, indisputable facts about what is going on. And you mentioned a number of them, some internal and also what's going on outside with North Koreans, like overseas labor, and even North Koreans who suffer this sort of regime. That is little known in general. My concern will be that this is bad, this is sad, this is horrible. You can read a lot. There's a number of books with the testimonies of escapees and refugees, all the suffering, and it's all there. So no question about it. So now, my question will be, what should we do? Now that we know, what should we do? Of course, we have to keep talking about it. And when I read the title of this conference and it was the word engagement, I said, yes, this is what we should do. But I think one part of the engagement is to know the problem, but the other one is action. And to get into action for these kind of things, we have to understand the source of the problem. So I think the source of the problem, there might be more, but I think the main one is the regime survival issue of North Korea. I think the survival of the regime is key to understand the human rights issue. The whole regime is organized, is composed, is constructed to keep control, right? To keep in power. Civil organizations or social organizations are all sanctioned by the state. You have to belong to some of these organizations, whether you like it or not. If you are young, then you have to join the youth organization of whatever things they are. There are a lot of different levels. You have to be part of at least one of these organizations. So these organizations work for keep you inside, keep you also control. And also it helps for the other people that are in these organizations to keep an eye on you and to spy on you. This is part of the regime. It's all to keep the regime in control in survival mode. So that will be one thing to explain why there's a lack of freedom of expression, lack of the freedom to choose the job you want, or even freedom to feed yourself. You cannot feel as you want, and of course you cannot move as you want. You have to ask for permission, and it's very likely that you will not have permission to move. I mean, to move from one city to another or one province to another, you cannot do that without permission. And if you do that without permission, then something bad will happen to you or your family. That's for sure. You can see all these things in literature, from most of them from testimonies of refugees who succeed to leave the country. There's a lot of books about that. And I think if we understand that regime survival is key to understand human rights, then we can move on to see, okay, how can we do something about this regime? Also, regime survival explains a lot about nuclearization. A lot. Actually, nuclearization is all about regime survival inside and outside North Korea. However, there's a problem with this because nobody likes this regime. And instead of engaging with the regime, we are sanctioning the regime. They are full of sanctions, cutting links from everywhere. And this only helps to keep the regime on guard all the time and feel very afraid of the international community. So when I read engagement, I think we can also think of engagement in this other sense, not only to get to know the problem and protest about it and go to the UN and everything that has been done, but no change has happened so far. So what if? That will be a question. What if we approach this problem differently? Instead of cutting all ways to North Korea, engage North Korea as a community. Truthfully, it has happened in South Korean governments several times, especially progressive governments. They have tried with the sunshine policy and alike to engage North Korea, but it's an international problem. It's not only North Korean problem. So if United States government is not convinced, or because of their internal issues they're against engagement, then whatever South Korea does, it doesn't go anywhere. So how about international community decide to engage North Korea and sincerely enough, they guarantee regime survival. They wouldn't have the need for nuclear weapons or keep control of everything, which affects human rights. So that will be my commentary. Try to think differently of what we have done so far. Just to regime change or destroy it. Even unification. Unification will not happen because of regime survival. What does unification mean? It means that one of these two regimes, South and North, will have to disappear. That's unification, only one government, right? So if we insist, if stakeholders in the peninsula insist that unification is the ultimate goal, I think this is already a lost cause, because North Korea will not allow it. They don't want, and they have the means. And everything that we have done as a community to stop human rights abuses, to stop nuclearization, it has actually done the opposite. It reinforces the fear of North Korea to do what they have been doing all the time. It's not a critique per se to the international community policies towards North Korea. It is a call for a different perspective on the problem and how to solve it. That will be it. That's what I think about it. And thank you very much. It was very enlightening. And I wanted to go just a little bit further from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez Jaimes. Do you want to? Yes, sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those brief about the Korean history. If I knew if you talk about those issues, I would skip that part. But you are better than I do. Maybe Hanyang University is better than Korea University in a way, right? Although we believe we are the best. Well, sir, thank you so much for your comment. And actually, not only as an ambassador, but and also as a professor of international relations, I've been engaging in that discussion more than many times. But let me just follow up what you said and then comment on what you said. Yes, Kim Jong-un's priorities regime survivor at all cost. So externally, he tried to intensify his military muscle by developing further missile and nuclear weapons, so that he would like to having a one-on-one negotiations or deal with United States over arms reduction rather than denuclearization. On the other hand, internally, he wants to control information inflow. I do believe you said, what shall we do? I think the best remaining method is the constantly sending the information inside North Korea, no matter how hard it is. But that is the last thing the Kim Jong-un would like to see, because he would like to do anything to prevent for the destabilizing of his own society, which can be a challenge for his regime survivor. So that's why I said North Korea's military adventurism and human rights abuses are the two sides of the same coin. Then you said, you made a very good point. We did everything about the sanction, but for those sanctions, I have other things to mention, particularly after Russian employed their veto power against the North Korea's sanction expert panel. But let me talk about that later if I have time left. But since I became the ambassador of this issue, I'm not only talk about accountability, I also talk about constructive engagement with the North Korean regime. But by saying constructive engagement, I'm not talking about what our progressive government or some other countries are talking about, the engagement with the North Korea, only focusing on humanitarian assistance and sidelining your human rights. That's exactly what they did when it comes to engagement with North Korea, because like our previous progressive government is focusing on denuclearization process and also like annihilation of the inter-Korean relations, so that they zip up their mouths about North Korean human rights issue because they are afraid of provoking Kim Jong-un regime. Then what was the outcome? They not only failed to serve their purpose, but also North Korea by now is becoming even stronger nuclear state, and also our inter-Korean relationship is getting worse. It's not because of the conservative government came power to Korea, but because that happens after the breakdown of Hanoi deal with the US. That indicate no matter how hard South Korean government try to ameliorating our relation with the North Korea, it's not us, but it's North Korean regime. They decide whether we are useful for them for now, then they will come. But if they think it's not it's useless, then they just completely ignore. Actually, that's why they declared, Kim Jong-un declared giving up one nation like a principle, and then he just come up with a two-state system. So that he already started to bypass South Korea, and then he tried to do something with Japan, and the Japanese prime minister want to do something as well. But that's final goal is they want to having a direct negotiation with the US. So I think Kim Jong-un is the one of the very person who cannot wait for Trump coming home and coming back to the power so that he can having another negotiations, right? So what I'm saying is, I do agree with you, but this sanction is strictly imposed on their bad behavior of a nuclear test, which is not only challenge to Korean Peninsula and regional security, but also the global security, including the non-proliferation, the regime treaties. Therefore, constructive engagement has to have humanitarian assistance together with human rights, but that humanitarian assistance have to be a core tool to improve human rights of ordinary North Korean people within North Korea, I believe. So we try to do everything. Even progressive government tried to do everything, but Kim Jong-un didn't accept any single humanitarian aid offer from South Korea, even during the progressive government. That's why I thought it is very important to build up international coalition, probably together with UN humanitarian agencies. We have to have a collective voice to build up the things, to pressure North Korean regime to accept humanitarian aid. They call humanitarian aid now as a poisonous candy. So they made flat rejection. Why? Do you know why? Because China helped them, and now because of their close relation with Russia, they got it. But on top of it, illegal cyber hacking, and also overseas laborers, the cash. So because of those things, it is very sensitive issues. But you said a sanction didn't work because sanction always having a loophole for them to come out. So I think we have to have collective voices so that Kim Jong-un should know, he cannot be an exception of a rule of law, international rule of law. That's what I just tried to say. So having said that briefly, sanction part. April 4th, Russia vetoed about a continuation of UN sanction on North Korean expert panel. But I'm afraid that they have 3 stages. Russia has been talking about ameliorate or lessens the level of UN sanction against North Korea. And then, as you just mentioned, they said those sanctions didn't go anywhere. Number 2, Russia opposed to making a new sanctions against North Korea, even though they're making a 7th nuclear test. Third, it didn't come out yet, but I'm afraid they break the ice of the entry point now, is they want to get rid of all existing sanctions against North Korea. So by giving the veto to expert panel continuation, I think they already got into the 3rd phase. But those sanction is gone. I don't think that will directly bring us to engagement with North Korea. I doubt it. That's why I think we have to have a more comprehensive approach with the collective voices. And there, I think a human right, observation of the human right, respect for human right has to be the focal point of us, international community, getting into the one place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Do we have time for a couple of questions from the students? Yeah. Tenemos un micrófono.
Good afternoon. Given that the current South Korean,
Can you identify yourself?
can you hear me? Okay.
So your name and
Tu nombre.
My name is Alejandro. Alejandro.
Alejandro, you are what, sophomore, freshman?
I'm on the 6th semester. Sophomore.
Junior. Yes.
Well, given that the current South Korean president is more like ideologically aligned to, well, I don't mean to make any moral judgment on his personality, but I would define him more aligned to Donald Trump in some sense. In some senses, I would say. Do you think? No, the South Korean president. I mean, yeah. Sorry. So given that the likeliness that his personality will be more aligned to that of Donald Trump, do you think that in the event that Donald Trump returns to the White House this year, could the South Korean government use this affinity as leverage to strike a deal with North Korea, given that as Dr. Juan Felipe mentioned, Donald Trump is more inclined to more conservative governments, but at the same time, it is progressive governments in South Korea the ones that have the political willingness to strike deals, well, to negotiate with North Korea. So do you think this such an alignment of these two countries' leaders could lead to some leverage in that question? Could that like be helpful in a sense? There's not many positive sides about Donald Trump in power, but I mean that could be a positive side for South Korean foreign policy.
Reply to it, or I just collect a couple of questions.
If you can reply to it.
Okay. Well, I don't think I can agree with you saying Trump and President Yoon having a more ideologically aligned to each other, because it was Biden and President Yoon having promoting for value diplomacy. And last year's the Camp David summit, together with Japanese, Korean, and American presidents, they tried to institutionalizing trilateral cooperation based on the same value and norms and respect for human rights and the market democracy. So that I think if Biden got reelected, that spirit and commitment of together with the US and Japan will continue from Korean, South Korean perspectives. But if Trump comes back, we will have to see, because we are concerned about his so-called transactional diplomacy rather than value diplomacy. So we have to work on those issues. But still, I'm sure the US, no matter who become a leader, they are, I think they are running through the system. Therefore, the Trump cannot get rid of everything about what we've been doing. So hopefully those spirit and commitment can continue. But for that, I think we have to prepare for the not only the top level, but also the like a lower level of ministries have to make closer solidarities to do something, not only North Korean issue, but all other issues. But going back to those your questions to North Korea, if Trump comes back, there are more chance, in my opinion, for the Kim Jong-un try to directly deal with the Trump, bypassing, ignoring the presence of a South Korean president. Because in 2017, when he asked us for serving as a bridge, because they never met, he never met, or North Korean leader never met the US top leader in person alone. That's why they need some kind of a broker or bridge at the time. But now I think he has a full of confidence because he already met twice with Trump and he believed that he knows the tendency of the Trump. So in that case, probably South Korean foreign policy and South Korea's policy toward North Korea will be a more challenge rather than opportunity.
Any other question?
It was a pleasure to hear you. My name is Tania. I'm currently a political communication student. I'm on my last semester of major, and I'm thinking about my thesis topic, non-moon. and thank you. And I remember in the past, maybe 6 months ago, I told to a professor that I wanted to write a thesis related to North Korean human rights. It was something like, it's a little bit hard to translate, but it was like the importance of political communication in planning some strategies to help North Korean human rights. And I remember that professor told me like, no, Tania, don't talk about it. Like something like saying almost like North Korea is a forbidden topic, something like that. I think some part of the society is like a little bit afraid. Maybe they have not enough information. So they are a little bit afraid of talking about North Korea or things that they consider like forbidden. And this is more for thanking you because in this conference, you bring me back that inspiration. So this is more like a comment for thanking you. Nice to meet you.
If you have any information needed, please let us know. Thank you very much.
I was about to ask if I can get your email or contact you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad to see your t-shirts, by the way, again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I have one last question. It's basically what has been the reaction of the South Korean government to this new two-state system announced by the North Korean regime? Because I focus on Southeast Asia, but I lived a long time in Taiwan. So I am very used to this discourse of one political system for two countries, right? There is no way China is ever going to say that they're going to create a two-state system with Taiwan. So for me, it was very surprising to hear the North Koreans, well, basically saying, okay, maybe it's time to see this under another perspective. So how did the South Korean government, but also the people of South Korea react to this statement?
Thank you for asking. One China policy, right? You're talking about it, right? And actually, in the Taiwan's case, although many of them come from mainland China, they already, the people of Taiwanese live there, right? So it's a complicated story for that. So I don't think it's comparable to the case of the Korean Peninsula. But Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, that is the grandfather and father, were also dictators, very ruthless dictators, but they never give up the concept and terminology of a nation, one nation, because that's their rationale. That's why they're always talking about self-reliance, 주체. But Kim Jong-un's case, who are educated in Switzerland, and also probably, have you heard of MZ generation? He's early 40. They said early 40 is the eldest part of the MZ generation. So probably because of that, his mentality appears to be quite different from his father and his grandfather. So if he can maintain his regime survivor, then he can do anything at all cost. And obviously he believed a two-state system might be more safe for him to continue his regime and then succeeded into either his daughter or his son as a fourth dynastic succession. But it is very dangerous, as I mentioned in the beginning, both in security purposes and human rights purposes. If we are one nation, although we are separate UN member state, since neither North and South will agree upon all those issues, and we always agree we are one nation, that we can observe our constitution. Based on that, North Korea is the South Koreans, right? Therefore, when the North Korean escapees come to South Korea, we can accept them as a South Korean citizen. And if thing happens in the North Korea in the event of the contingency, we have a reason and rationale and legal ground, right, to get in there under the name of protection of North Korean people. But if we turn out to be the two separate nations, we have no legal ground and no rationale to get into North Korea's contingency. Why? In order to get in there, we need a Security Council's permission. But you shouldn't be surprised, Russia and China will veto for us to participate in that effort. Therefore, it is critical for South Korea to maintain one nation theory and principles, just like what West Germany did. East Germany since 1960s, they always talking about two separate states. And in 1974, they finally made East German constitution as a two-state, just like what North Korea tried to do now. But West Germany never gave up one nation principle, and they always stick to their legal basis, and then they try to persuade the international community, and then they try to seek their support. Therefore, in 1989, when the German decided to go to unification, it didn't come overnight. The tumbling down the Berlin Wall is a symbolic things. In order to be united together, they need a general election from Eastern German. East German, 95% of the East German vote for unification with the West German. Why? Because they want that. And since they are not two states according to the Western Germany's law, right? The West German was able to maintain their rationale and legal ground to unify with the East Germany. So in that sense, I think we have to follow the suit of the West Germany. That's what I'm trying to say. This is a big change, by the way. We've been talking about one nation, and North Korea always talking about one nation. Actually, their voice was louder than us when it comes to one nation issues. But it is a very major shift of North Korea's foreign policy from one nation to two separate systems. So I think this is time for South Korean international community have to think about what we should do.
Well, with this, we finish today's conference. Thank you very much for being here with us. And now Dr. Alicia will present some gifts to you.
Oh, very much. This is a gift. Thank you very much. There are some books we have here. This was Peninsula Coreana.
Oh.
It's a book of Nayeli, our researcher.
I have to learn Spanish.
It's in Spanish. Yes, you have to. You must. But you can put a Google translation. You won't have any problem.
I have a good reason now to learn Spanish. Right?
Then, and this is we make a series which is called Coordenadas from different parts. And here is one of Korea that it participate Juan
nice.
Felipe. And well, this is and these are the books that we have in open access. Some are in English, and we hope to write one in English about Korea and women's rights and all of the speech. And thank you very much. And this is a bag that
nice.
the director of the Economic Research Institute is given because we are in the economic research. Thank you very much.
So much. Actually, before I came here, I met the Mexican ambassador to Seoul. He's a proud graduate from UNAM University, and he was, that's my.
So he was very happy.
And then when I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs today, all of them came from UNAM, and they said that's the best university in Mexico. So I'm privileged to meet with the professors and the students of the best, the University of Latin America, if not the world.
Okay, so we're going to take a picture first, and then with all of you outside, okay? Okay, come for the picture. Okay, in the center. Is in the center.
¿Quieres dos solas y luego nosotros?
No, todos juntos.